Welcome to Spinning on Air. I'm David Garland. You're listening to WNYC, and I have a guest with me tonight named Jim O'Rourke. Jim, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I invited Jim O'Rourke to join me because he's put out some very interesting music of his own, and he's been involved in an intriguingly wide range of projects, from free improvisation to ornately arranged songs, and worked with bands that people have likely heard of. You mixed the most recent Wilco CD, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, and you've worked with Stereolab, and are you now a member of Sonic Youth?
That's what they say, yeah.
So the first new band member in that group in 20 years or something?
It's a bit, that's why I say I let them say. You know?
So Jim O'Rourke has brought along some material that he's interested in. I guess you're sort of a virtuoso collector along with everything else. Huh?
I'm a fan.
So I think what Jim's really looking forward to is the part when you can present other people's music. But I'm going to insist that we start with some of Jim O'Rourke's own music because it's provocative and it's challenging and it has a friendly surface and other aspects beneath that surface. And so I thought we'd just jump in by listening to a track from your most recent CD called Insignificance. We'll also hear a track from Eureka, a track or two. So this is you playing what instruments?
Actually, on this track, I'm playing everything except the drums.
Okay. Yeah. And singing.
Yeah.
Right? You are the singer here.
Yeah.
All right. So our first entry into the world of Jim O'Rourke comes now here on Spinning on Air. We've been listening to the music of Jim O'Rourke here on Spinning on Air on WNYC. I'm David Garland, and Jim O'Rourke is with me. We've heard tracks from two different CDs that have come out in the last couple of years, Eureka and Insignificance. And Jim, as you explained, you're playing most instruments on this, the guitar and the piano anyway.
On the first track, I was playing everything but the drums. The last one, there was a fair amount of people playing on it.
You know, horns and strings and stuff. Now, you laughed several times as we listened to the songs, and you also, I guess the audience should know that I get the impression you'd prefer not to have to hear this music right now.
No, I just, I hear all the missteps and errors. And
as anyone does, I think, when they have to listen to their own recordings. Now, I just wonder first, what music expanded your world or blew your mind when you were young?
Ooh. I mean, the first thing that really, it's the obvious thing. I mean, when I was very young, of course, it was like Zappa and more Mother's Invention. But I was lucky that I managed to hear this stuff fairly early. So, it was kind of odd being in fourth grade, having Was that
because it was around your house? Did your parents?
No, I'm just fanatic kind of cross-referencer. And you probably dub that later, so I say cross-dresser. And then, especially that was a thing. I had gotten a copy of Absolutely Free from the library, and inside there was a list that Zappa had put, and it's just like 200 names. So immediately I started checking everything out, and that's how I found out about Stockhausen and some of the people were filmmakers, some of the people were writers, but I found out about modern classical stuff at that point, and then free jazz stuff at that point. So then I moved into that, but the free jazz stuff bit by bit didn't seem, I don't know, I couldn't articulate, but it didn't seem to go far enough, and then I managed to stumble upon Derek Bailey because there were two records on ECM, and at that time ECM was pretty good label at that time.
So this was the early 70s or mid-70s?
Mid-70s, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. More like mid-late 70s, yeah. And so then I started getting into that stuff. And Derek Bailey was the first thing that completely, changed my perspective on how to listen to music.
How did he do that?
Because it was the first time I heard something I had no way of understanding what the hell it was. I couldn't relate it to anything at all. I knew I liked it, but I couldn't relate it to anything.
For listeners who don't know, Derek Bailey is a British guitarist who plays in a very abstract, atonal way.
Yeah, and I was lucky that the first two records I heard of his were some of the most abstract records he made. It wasn't like solo guitar. It was like it was during a time when he was doing what a lot of people would call insect music, where there was a lot of ticks and talks, and I just couldn't relate it to anything at all.
But it excited you.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I still do. And luckily, then I found out about the French, the French musique concrète composers, and that also was a big change for me.
Now, you made your first records, as I understand it, when you were still a teenager. What was that music like?
It was tape music. I was mostly doing tape music. For a long time, I was very much under the spell of, people like Luc Ferrari and Pierre Henry. And at that time, the thing that was interesting is at that time, that was sort of the rise of the second wave of industrial music, like after Throbbing Gristle. And there was new people like Hafler Trio and P16D4 and Nurse with Wound, the early stuff. And the thing that was interesting for me at that time was that they were dealing with a lot of the same sound elements that the tape music I liked, but they were doing completely different things formally with it because they weren't as influenced by the sort of tradition of classical composition like Stockhausen or any of them were. So it had a sort of vibrancy to it that the other music didn't have. So I also got very interested in that.
So would we have heard that sound in your music too?
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of what I was connected to early on, was that crowd of people.
And if you were using tape, what were the sounds that were on the tape?
Anything that was needed, mostly field recordings. And, I'd make specific, recordings for a sound I needed, moving garbage in the garage or whatever, It wasn't so much using guitar or anything. At that time, actually, was very strict. I kept the things separate, as you do when you're young. And at the same time, I was doing all the prepared guitar stuff when I was improvising with people. So I kind of kept them separate. I never thought of combining them at the time.
And had you ever played guitar conventionally when you were younger? I mean,
yeah.
You wanted to just sort of play the songs you liked?
Yeah, when I was really, when I was in high school and stuff, I wanted to be like a jazz guitarist. But the more I heard other guitarists who were taking things a little further out, that interested me less and less.
I'm speaking with Jim O'Rourke here on Spinning on Air, and in this portion of the show, we're listening to his music, and then as soon as he can manage it, he'll be letting us hear some of the things he's brought with him, just things that he likes. So a lot of material that's going to be new to my ears, and I'm looking forward to that. And right now, here's a little more of Jim O'Rourke's music, the title track from Eureka. This is a song that comes together kind of slowly. And you're playing guitar, and you're making some sounds one way or another. Is that with your power book? Or?
No. This, at the beginning. No, it's guitar. I think I was running it through some, I don't remember too well. I was running through some stuff. And I know there's like a couple organs and stuff. And I think there's more horns on this.
Yes.
I haven't heard it in a while, sorry.
All right, well, here's Eureka from Jim O'Rourke. You're listening to 93.9 WNYC and WNYC.org. This is Spinning on Air, and I'm David Garland. My guest this week is Jim O'Rourke, and we're listening to some of his music and some of the music he brought with him. Jim, you've put out a group of 3 CDs recently in the last few years, all of which are named after Nicholas Roeg movies. What?
Yeah,
why is
the
that?
album length ones. Well, I mean, of course, it was just a way to sort of figure out a title. So I have particular names to choose from.
They don't necessarily sound like movie titles or anything. They're Insignificance and Eureka.
And then Bad Timing. That's right, there is 3.
Yeah.
Well, the names do have sort of specific relation to the themes on the record, so it worked. So it was sort of a way of constricting myself of, figuring a way to get a concise theme for the record, as well as being a Roeg fan. Roeg's been one of my biggest influences, so.
Yeah. You like movies a lot, huh?
Yeah. much more than film. I mean, much more than music. Sorry.
Really?
I like movies more than film.
You're a Hollywood man yourself.
Yes.
Really, more than music?
Yeah. I've been more inspired by film. You know, I find that, especially like the way that film is conscious of the way that the medium, you know, manipulates people's perception of itself. So I find a lot more work in film with that than in music, and that interests me as the question: why is this working the way it is, and why do I think it is what it is? I mean, that's kind of usually the main question I have, and I just find that those ideas are much more explored in film than in music.
Well, I'm sure it's true. Music creates a lot of expectations in the listener, and most music sort of goes along with those expectations.
It
gives you
question
what you are expecting to get from it. Now
I think a lot of times the people who make it don't even question it. Of course, this equals this, you know.
Well, one thing that's interesting about your music is that, to my ear, it really has a subversive quality, and there are some dichotomies at play. You sound to me like a real formalist, but you're also sensually into the actual sounds that you're dealing with.
Right.
And it makes for a sort of disconcerting listening. Is it disconcerting to you as well, or do you want people to be disconcerted?
Well, I mean, I'd like people to think, why did I think that it was going to go this way, instead of thinking, why didn't he go that way, or why did he do that? It's like, why did I expect that? That's what I hope, because that's when I hear other people's work, both in music and film, when they do that to me, that's when I'm most excited, when they draw me into it and make me a part of the equation, you know. So, I mean, I hope to do that. I mean, I don't want to be didactic about it. I mean, I do spend a lot of time thinking about the implications and the form and how it's perceived and how to change that. But if it doesn't work as music, you know, then it's pointless. I mean, when I was in school and, you know, being force-fed things like Babbitt and 12-tone music, I couldn't at the time really articulate what it was that bothered me about it. But eventually I felt, well, if the medium you choose, whether it be painting or film or music, doesn't use the elements that it has that are unique to communicate that, then I don't see the point. Then you might as well just show the score.
Doesn't use those elements to communicate what? You said that.
What it is you're trying to get across. You know, like, you know, I mean, I was using 12-tone as an example. You know, I say, well, this is interesting because the row is inverted here, and then you articulate that. And it's like, well, that is very interesting as I look at the score, but do I hear it? You know, and of course there are people who are successful at that, but it's that extra step of like thinking, the medium works this way, this is what I can do with it. How do I take this idea I have and make it work? How do I get that across, instead of thinking, this is the idea, now I put it into music? I mean, there's a difference.
The difference seems to be one of communication, of it coming across, being perceived.
Or, you know, the amount of work, the work that you have to go into to figure that out, it takes you places that you wouldn't expect. You know, I mean, once you decide this is the idea and I'm going to do it with this, there's an extra step of work to think, well, how do I translate this? There's no way to be, you know, I'm going to do this and now everybody will get it. You know, you can't do that.
Right.
But that extra work that you have to do in order to try is usually the time I find the most interesting work happens.
So you seem to be talking about, I mean, there are plenty of musicians who, you know, if they were to be asked what their song is about, it's about, you know, this girl I liked, and it's about an E7th leading to an A, you know, and this is what the song's about. You're talking about a different kind of underlying concept, one that has to do with perception, I guess.
Yeah, and questioning the ideas of, you know, whatever it is you present, you know. I mean, I have no problem with music like that. I listen to plenty of it. It just doesn't interest me to do that. I'm more interested in figuring out, you know, it's like I'm trying to figure out why what is what. And I'd like to invite other people along with me as I try to figure it out, you know. You know, I mean, it's the usual list of things that set me on that path. When I was young, Godard's films really changed how I did everything. Like, especially when I saw Weekend, when the way he would, in the case of the music, juxtapose the quote-unquote wrong music over sequences, change the perception of when it should start and end, and all these things. I started to really question everything. And that's been sort of a lasting thing with me.
And so you've explored, from the tape music and the free improv, you're coming back toward music that has an approachable sound, seems to be sort of friendly mainstream, but you put sonic things in there that sort of subvert the expectations of the audience. But to me, the real thing that throws a wrench into the works are the lyrics. Because many of them are really sort of nasty.
Yeah, some of them are genuinely nasty. Other ones are, I think maybe it's my sense of humor. Most of them make me laugh, so I guess some of them don't make other people laugh.
Well, some of them are really, there's definitely anger behind them. Is that a real anger?
Sometimes not. Sometimes it's about questioning why you thought that was anger, I'm never that specific. I don't, it's hard to articulate without going through song by song, but I don't stick with, when I start, of course, you start off of a theme or whatever, an idea. I'm not, stuck to it. I'm interested in where that takes me. So it ends up being a lot more wide varied than that one original idea. But,
one of the things you seem to question in the music is something that rarely gets questioned in music, and that's sincerity.
Oh, yeah. That is sort of an overriding, theme.
It?
Yeah. The idea of someone, especially with this record, the last record I did with songs on it, people, a lot of people, and myself as anyone, when someone sings to them, they think, they forget these can be characters. These are, they take this as some sort of confessional to them.
Right.
100,000 records, or 1,000,000 records, or 10,000 records, or 2,000 records, depending on what level that people work at. I don't think you make a confessional to 200,000 people unless maybe, I don't know, maybe what's her name? I forget. Does, but it's just, again, that's something like a sort of basic question going in that should be questioned. How sincere is this? It's not even a question of sincerity. It's a question of character, a question of public face.
There's a grocery store near where I live, which I go to sometimes when we're running out of milk and that sort of thing. And every time I go in there, I realize why I hate going in there. It's because they play a certain kind of music,
all right.
always nonstop. Ballads, baby, it's so sad we broke up, maybe we can get back together.
Right.
And it's, always done in these overblown arrangements, and it is totally insincere.
Well, that's
sincerity.
It's interesting you say that, because one song on the EP, the Halfway Three-Way, which made a lot of people upset, I was not as much as I'd hoped, but which is kind of a character who's become obsessed with having one sort of sexual liaison, and of course it can't happen, so he just keeps lowering his standards, to the point that it's obscene. And it was actually one of those songs that inspired me. It was a song, He's Mine. No, He's Mine. It was like Brandy, a Brandy song, The Boy Is Mine or something. And, you take these songs, and also at the same time there was a song by one of the New Kids on the Block, Jordan. Oh, God, I really like the record, too. And it's like, I'm going to give you some. And that song was really obscene, actually. But I just thought, you just take one more step with these songs and they become completely obscene, because the underlying ideas of these things are ridiculous. And I just thought, well, I'll just describe it graphically instead. And that's literally how I got the idea for that song, was from that.
Well, it would be natural to hear that song now, but I'd rather not.
Okay. that one's a bit much.
It's that one's called Halfway to a Three-Way and comes from your EP of the same name. And that actually, I mean, you've described it pretty clearly, and it is truly a disturbing song. And I would rather hear a different track from that CD. And we both, I told you which one I wanted to hear from this, and you said it was the one you wanted as well. What is the name of this?
The Workplace.
And yeah, can be enjoyed just for its pretty sound, but if you listen carefully, the words are also very intriguing. You speak of how you like to see women in men's clothing and men in women's.
Not me.
Oh, the singer speaks. But you choose some intriguing words. You like women in men's clothing because they seem so contained.
Oh, God, I'd have to hear them first.
And men in women's clothing because it betrays them.
Oh, that's right. I did say that.
I like it. Just a few words, but there's some rich material there. Let's hear some more music by Jim O'Rourke here on WNYC. Music by Jim O'Rourke here on Spinning on Air. Jim O'Rourke is with me. That's a track from Halfway to a Three-Way EP of 3 songs, is it? 3 or 4 songs?
4 songs, yeah.
That came out just a couple of years ago. Yeah. What was the name of that one?
The Workplace.
The Workplace. Oh, and you mentioned when the sort of chorus of voices came in, you said those were the workers.
Yeah. Envision it as like a little musical, you know.
Now, there's no question but that song would fit into most people's sense of what's pretty.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I just wondered what the prettiness means to you. Are you being ironic? Are you enjoying the prettiness?
Oh, yeah, I enjoy it. I'm not a fan of irony.
No?
No.
But I feel there's an ironic stance in a lot of the songs because of their subversive quality. It's like you're giving people something with a pleasant surface, and underneath you're
it's the conflict that interests me.
You're yanking at them by giving them something that contradicts that prettiness.
Yeah, the contradiction interests me. I mean, I guess I just always seen irony as something insincere, you know, and I'm being sincere in my insincerity, you know.
How do you mean?
Because I mean it. Regardless of what the lyrics say, it isn't meant as flippant, you know. Mm-hmm. If it's insulting or if it's confusing, I mean, none of it. I don't mean like I'm intending to be insulting. It's like it's a result of work for, you know. I'm bothering to put out the record because I don't want to waste people's time, you know. So it isn't so much an irony as a. I mean, it's just that conflict interests me, and I don't like, programmatically make pretty music. Like I'm going to make this pretty music and then put these lyrics. It is kind of the way I write music, so it isn't like I've got a plan, like pretty music combined with not pretty lyrics. Sometimes it just tends to be the way I work. I mean.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying it's not so much an intellectual game; it's just the music you want to be making.
Yeah, I mean, it's both. You know, mm-hmm. I mean, that's I think a lot of people sometimes people who do have problems with me, they don't see how you can want to do both. You know, they see them as mutually exclusive, and they're not. That's why I say, like, you can be sincere in these kind of conflicting situations. I mean, I'm as interested in why it works as I hope anybody else is. You know, it isn't a lecture. I'm not trying to give a lecture to anybody. Yeah.
Interesting. Jim O'Rourke is my guest here on Spinning on Air. We've spoken about Derek Bailey, a guitarist who influenced you. I know you've worked with Henry Kaiser. Another guitarist that I guess you've worked with one way or another, and certainly we've heard the influence, though we haven't spoken of it yet, is John Fahey.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
You knew him?
Yeah, he was a real character. I really enjoyed my time with him. We worked on a few records together, which was great. But I just enjoyed knowing him. You know, I mean, that was the best time for me, was just, you know, knowing him, knowing his outlook on life.
Well, he was one of the great irascible characters,
yes.
right?
Yeah, I was lucky. I never incurred his wrath. I was very lucky, but he could be terrifying. But he was still interesting, and I mean, he was a real curmudgeon, you know. But I enjoyed it. He would lash out at things that needed to be lashed out at, you know, and it was one of the things I admired about him.
He was an awfully interesting musician because he was, on the one hand, perceived as a traditionalist and as an untraditionalist. I mean, he was mixing the finger-picking guitar style that almost had a nostalgic element to it with tape collage and things that were pretty confusing to people. They didn't seem to go together, and yet they went together through his work in a very elegant way.
Yeah, and his compositions, of course, like, you know, expanded the idea of what you could do with it and expanded the length of them, you know. He started working in these, you know, 20-minute suites, you know, that were, you know, influential to a lot of people. I mean, it's funny. The funny thing is the finger picking, I first got into it because of Genesis. I wanted to learn the entire Supper's Ready and all these other tracks, so I learned how to finger pick. But yeah, I mean, he was an influence in the sense that he, when I would listen to him, I say, yeah, maybe I should pick up the guitar again. I mean, because I tend to like play it, and then like when I make these records, and I don't touch it again for like a year or two. So he would always kind of get me excited. And
did you seek him out? How did you cross his path?
He actually contacted me. I just got a call from him one day.
Wow.
And some people had thought that we would get along. And unbeknownst to me, he had already known some of my stuff, and he called me up, and actually, as usual, we ended up mostly talking about film, and he told me the story about how he'd punched out Antonioni, and I thought, are you crazy? He's like, oh, yeah, I've got stories like this all over the place. And he sent me this big pile of, like, you know, food and paint-stained pages of all these writings he had done. And then me and another guy, Dean Blackwood, sort of started, and that's what ended up being that book that came out about 2 years ago of his writings. That was sort of the genesis of that, was that, and also that the person that he ran the Revenant label, which was Mr. Fay's label later in his life, a few people who had copies of these things, we all sort of made an effort to get them out, because they're fantastic. He was an incredible writer. Yeah.
I'm speaking with Jim O'Rourke, and we're going to play, let's see, what should we do? Listen to one more of your tunes before we go on to other things? Or maybe we're ready to go on to some other things, and we'll return to your music.
Okay, sure.
More in a moment here on 93.9 WNYC and WNYC.org.
I'm happy to listen to other things.
So Jim O'Rourke has brought a bunch of material with him, things that he likes on LP and CD. And where would you like to begin with that?
I'd like to play. There's a singer-songwriter who's one of my all-time favorites. Unfortunately, not very well known. Her name was Judy Sill, and she only made 2 albums in the early '70s for Asylum. I believe her first album, along with Jackson Browne's album, was the first 2 records on Asylum. And she had a very interesting life, which I won't go into, but if you're interested, you could look up on the web. I'm sure one of the first 2 pages you'll find is somebody's recollection of her, and it's a very interesting life. She's best known because she wrote Lady-O for the Turtles.
Okay.
But she probably my favorite songwriter ever out of the States.
Her name again?
Is Judy Sill.
S-I-L-L.
Yeah, and she had 2 albums, Judy Sill, and then her second album, Heart Food.
And we're going to hear from Heart Food?
Yeah, The Kiss.
Okay. This is Spinning on Air. You're listening to 93.9 WNYC and WNYC.org. I'm David Garland. My guest is Jim O'Rourke, and we're on to the portion of the program where he's sharing some of the things he brought, which included Judy Sill, a lovely track from a songwriter who did all that arranging, and she conducted her orchestra and everything.
Yeah, she was quite brilliant. Fantastic writer. Yeah.
You mentioned that some of her material's been issued on CD in Japan, but not here, I guess.
No. Her 2 records, I believe, were done in Japan by now. Even, unfortunately, with Japan, Japanese CDs disappear quickly because they only do small runs.
Yeah.
I've heard news of them being reissued in the States, but that news has been going for the last 8 years. So.
Right. It was Judy Sill. And then Scott Walker, a man whose big body of work I still haven't really investigated yet.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't I?
Yeah, he's fantastic. But I decided to bring his most unpopular record. It was a record, Climate a Hunter, I believe. It was from 1987.
Considered a sort of unpopular because of the corny sounding arrangements.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, like, the musicians and the sounds on it are very dated, and they don't really serve him that well. But in a way, it's interesting to hear. Like you were saying, the drumming is so, dunderheaded. It actually is quite interesting. Although Evan Parker actually plays on this record.
He does.
Yeah. It's great also.
Scott Walker is an American who's been living in England for a long time.
Right. Ever since the 60s, yeah.
And he's created a genre of his own, sort of experimental crooner songs.
Yeah. I mean, he's been... I mean, before, maybe a couple of years ago, I think his influence wasn't talked about as much as it is now, I mean, I'm sure maybe people who are listening now had never heard him before. They could hear even just the sound of his voice and his phrasing. You can hear it on, like, David Bowie's voice. And, I mean, I think especially because a lot of those artists at that time, the Walker Brothers, which was the group, that he had in the 60s, pop group, which had much more hits in England than here, was a big influence. And then the 4 albums he made afterwards, which got increasingly more experimental, but still stayed within the form of songs. This was really the first record. He hadn't made a record in years and years and years, and then he came back with this record, which is really stretched the idea of what a song could be.
And this LP is called Climate of Hunter.
Yeah.
A strange song, singing about Cro-Magnon
yeah,
herders.
Yeah, and there was also the lyrics on these last 2 albums. He made this one, and then, I think again, 8 years later, he made Tilt, and hasn't made an album since. The lyrics made a giant shift into, very personal, language, which is, very difficult to decode if it is meant to be decoded at all.
Huh.
But very, they raise amazing images, though.
Jim O'Rourke is sharing some of his records with us here on Spinning on Air, and we have Henri Chopin next.
Yeah, he's great.
Not to be confused with Frédéric. Tell me about Henri Chopin.
He was he uses all sorts of different names for himself, but I mean, he falls in the category of people called concrete poetry. At first he was a poet, and then he started working more in the area of concrete poetry, which works with where the words are placed on the page and the graphic arrangement of the page. But he also started making tape music using his voice, and he felt this was an extension of that. And most of his work that I know is in this area of audio poems, as he calls them. And this is a piece from 1973, I'm going to say it wrong, Dynamisme Integral. It's fantastic.
Now, is his voice on this one? I was hearing sort of electronic sounds.
It's pretty much all made with a tape recorder in his voice, whether he's using, feedback with his voice and using his voice as the cavity of his mouth as the filter. Or pretty much does it all with his voice or mouth and throat, yeah.
All right. Here's Henri Chopin for you here on Spinning on Air. This is Spinning on Air. I'm David Garland. My guest, Jim O'Rourke, has brought along some of his own music and some music he likes. We've been listening to some of the latter just now. 3 pieces. We began with Henri Chopin.
Right, yeah.
What we just heard now is something I'd never been exposed to, and other folks might be surprised, as I was, to know that was recorded in about 1971.
Yeah, so. October of 71.
And what was it?
It's Anthony Moore, who's better known for being involved with like Slap Happy and people like Dagmar Krause, but he made 2 albums in the early 70s of compositions. This album was called Pieces from the Cloudland Ballroom, and another album called Songs from the Blue Bag.
Was that similar?
It was more of a string writing for small string groups. It's good, but this is the album I really love of his. 3 pieces in that vein. As far as I know, the only things he ever did that were released in that way, of that style. He kind of moved through different styles of composition at that time.
What's he doing now? Do you know?
I believe he's a teacher of media studies at Cologne University. Yeah.
And not making music?
Not so much. I think he does here and there, yeah, but not so much, yeah.
Now, we've got a lot of stuff that we've got more than enough material, frankly. And I want to be sure that we cover part of your work that we haven't covered yet, which is your work with other people as engineer and producer and musician. And so we're going to be able to hear something from the new, so far unreleased Sonic Youth album. And
we are?
Well, later at some point.
Okay.
I mean, we have it, so we can hear it.
Okay.
What we're going to hear right now is from Stereolab. Tell us a little about Stereolab.
Well, they're a group based around Tim Kaine and Laetitia Sadier from London. And the way Tim works is very interesting because he brings in a specific engineer for specific songs because he's interested to see what their take is on it. So when Stereolab make records, it's much more than usual a collaboration between the engineer / producer and the band.
The material is pretty well set, but the engineer interprets
the songs are set, but the arrangements, and which is with Stereolab such a part of the song, is really a collaboration. And Tim's very interesting to work with that way because he genuinely wants to see how other people see the songs, and then you kind of work from there. And so it's a fun way to work.
And you've worked with them on their last few records, is that right?
Yeah.
We're going to hear something from, what is the name of this one? Cobra and Phases Group?
Cobra Phases Group in the Milky Night, I believe.
Let's get it straight. Cobra and Phases Group play Voltage in the Milky Night.
Play Voltage, right?
All right.
I always know everything by the working title. When the records come out, I don't memorize the real titles.
And this is a track that you recorded and helped arrange then, I guess?
Yeah.
All right. And do you remember what the initial material was? How was it presented to you?
Usually it's a 4-track cassette, of Tim and Laetitia at home, with the song, Tim playing the guitar and Laetitia singing, and the vocal arrangement ideas and the melody lines and such. And that's usually where it starts from.
So guitar rather than keyboard?
Oh, yeah. Most usually on guitar, yeah.
All right. Well, here is the sound of one of the songs that my guest Jim O'Rourke produced along with Stereolab. Already moving on to something else here on the Stereolab CD, entitled Cobra and Phases Group Play Voltage in the Milky Night. It's the next to most recent Stereolab album. And this is spinning on air on 93.9 WNYC and WNYC.org. My guest is Jim O'Rourke, who produced the track we just heard, and I guess you were telling me that whole sort of second section of it is really your baby, I guess.
Oh, no. I don't want to. No, it was just, it was something I was happy with.
Well, we're going to hear some more music coming right up. First, we're going to take a little break here on WNYC. Jim O'Rourke, composer and multi-instrumentalist and producer and engineer, is my guest here on this week's Spinning on Air. And we're going to hear just something that you like next. It actually turns out to be something I like as well. Not that I haven't enjoyed what the other things you've played, I've just been unfamiliar with them. But this one I know. It's Japanese singer Jun Tagawa and a group she had called Guernica.
Yeah. It's very difficult. It's one of those things when you play it for people and they ask you, why do you like this? It's very difficult to describe. I always have a hard time describing why I like Jun Tagawa so much.
Really? What's take a stab at it.
I just really just don't know. It just hits me in the spot. You don't know what it is. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just she's just the best. I just don't know why she is, but she is.
And this group Guernica, you say it was Koji Ueno?
His name Koji Ueno, and her. It was just the two of them. Although later there was a third person whose name I don't remember. And they made 3 albums, which are very hard to describe. From what I understand, it's very critical of Japanese propaganda of the 50s. It's sort of its jumping off point.
And its musical style is sort of hearkening back to orchestras, and it's meant to sound sort of like something of the past.
It sounds like a newsreel almost. Yeah, but it's her voice just slays me.
All right, a brief track from Guernica and Jun Tagawa, and then we're going to hear Smog.
Yeah, Bill Callahan.
Another album that you produced. Is that right?
Yeah, I worked on that one. But I mean, I'm a big fan of his. Outside of having worked with him, I'm a big fan. One of my favorite songwriters. Incredible lyric writer. Very doesn't need a lot of words to say a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right, some more selections from Jim O'Rourke here on Spinning on Air. You're listening to Spinning on Air here on 93.9 WNYC and WNYC.org. I'm David Garland, here each Friday night from 9 to 11 with this program. After the programs air, they become part of the Spinning on Air archive on the WNYC website, and you can listen to it again at your convenience. Go to WNYC.org and click on music and find your way to Spinning on Air. And listen to those archives, because there's a lot there now, a growing amalgam of shows. And this week my guest is Jim O'Rourke. We're running out of time, but not quite out of time yet, thank goodness. And more than enough material to do more shows. Hey, that's good news. We'll do it again. And we just heard a pair of songs that sure provided a range of sound for listeners. First, it was the group Guernica featuring the vocalist Jun Tagawa, and just now Smog, who's really one guy.
Yeah, Bill Callahan.
You were playing on that track?
Yeah, actually, I was playing the keyboards on that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard to remember sometimes.
And we're going to hear a project that's gotten a little bit of press attention just lately, and that's the new album from Wilco.
Yeah.
When was it recorded? A couple of years ago?
I think it was recorded probably over the last year. Probably over the last 2 years. They were recording a lot, and then re-recording again and again. My friend Glenn actually joined the band halfway through, and then I think they recorded again and again. And then Jeff came to me and asked me to help suss things out with it. And so then we continued to record.
When you say again and again, you mean they recorded a song once and then rearranged it and did it again?
Yeah, many different versions of the same song, yeah.
What were they after?
I think that's what they were trying to find out. Uh-huh. So
it's perceived as being a real change for this group, which began as a more sort of almost traditional, semi-mainstream band.
Yeah. I mean, the first record wasn't so far off from the work Jeff had done in Uncle Tupelo. But, the thing that's interesting about Jeff is that most people don't know is, Jeff's first band was a noise band,
uh-huh.
which, ironically, he and I were actually on a compilation together like 12 years ago or something, some noise comp, we were both like teenagers with, cassette labels and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But Jeff knows a lot of this, he knows everything we've played today. He knows all this stuff as well. He has a much wider knowledge of music and film and writing than most people would think.
You're speaking of Jeff Tweedy, who is the principal songwriter and singer of Wilco.
Yeah. So, Jeff and I knew each other mostly just from, like, our similar interests, and then he asked me to mix one song they were having particular trouble with, figuring out what to do with it, and then he insisted I had to mix the rest. So, that entailed, like, also still re-recording and rearranging, he and Glenn and I sort of camped into the studio and continued to work on the tunes from there.
Now, I forget where I read it, but I think it was a New York Times article about this album where, they addressed the idea that someone, knowing that you were associated with it, Jim O'Rourke's name on this, you must be the guy who's responsible for the weird sounds, right? But that's not the case.
Oh, in this case, it was almost the opposite. I mean, the album was so much noisier before, and I think Jeff knew that that I was able to like pull songs out of noise, so he wanted me to help him do that because he wanted the songs to still be there. And for me, that's what's interesting, is how to make these things work within the idea of the song. So that was sort of the jumping off point for the work that we did for the record. Yeah.
We'll hear one track from this new CD, which is called Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, and the track itself is what?
Radio Cure.
All right, this is Wilco, mixed by my guest, Jim O'Rourke. Do you play on this one?
I might. I don't remember.
Okay. That's the group Wilco, performing from their new CD, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, a track called Radio Cure. And the CD was mixed by my guest, Jim O'Rourke.
Hello.
We've heard a lot of your stuff in the course of this hour. It's been a little while since we actually played anything you recorded under your own name. But I hope people have been able to be with us for these 2 hours, because we've covered quite an interesting range of material. And I want to thank you for bringing in those tracks that you brought in.
Oh, no problem. I was happy to.
And we'll go out with at least, we won't have time for the whole track, but a little bit from your CD called Insignificance. Your material's pretty well distributed. It's on the Drag City label.
Yeah, the songs records are. Yeah.
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 And so people should not have too much difficulty finding that. And is there dragcity.com?
Yeah, it is actually just dragcity.com. They also did the Fahey book that I mentioned earlier.
So people can get that through their website if they want.
I recommend the Fahey book. It's great.
Okay. And I recommend Jim O'Rourke's CDs. Jim, thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much.
All right.